radio show live here on KCOH TV radio, the Boost Global Network in historic Third Ward in Houston, Texas. Okay, this evolved little thing, I've never seen that. Y'all see, this is what happens when you when you got a window. We got this whole thing called Evolve Cars, free community shuttle. Shut up. Come on, Houston. That's what I'm talking about. So we are, hopefully y'all will see him pass by through the window. You can see his little car go by. The little Evolve car. No, it didn't show up. So welcome today to the show. I got so distracted. We are going to have an amazing show. So the y'all who have been watching me know LaGina Ray Harris, and we're going to have a good conversation today. We are changing some things up on the show, just so you know. So I've got my amazing producer, Jay is here. He's setting up some lights. Y'all see the light change? Ooh, what light does to you. He's setting up lights. He's getting all things together. So I'm going to do the normal kind of, hey, tune in. Here's some things you need to talk to. Good morning, Chef B. Some things we need to talk about. And then we'll dive into the details of the show. So hang with me. We are working through our process of changing some things. So just know, as you can see, the light changes. God, you don't see? Good light is a beautiful thing. So we're going to do that. And then we'll dive into the show because LaGina and I are going to be talking seriously about leadership and community, being a social impact entrepreneur, the things she's doing, the things we're both trying to do in the community, how all this stuff works. I mean, there's some deep stuff, and she's doing some incredible things with the us space. It's even changed to be something bigger and better. I mean, it's always evolving. And so we're going to talk about all of that and how you guys think about showing up and doing some things. And just so because she's on, I'm going to do this quick plug for Chef B. So you can find her, Chef B, and that's B with 3 E's. She is doing a retreat in Jamaica. All you have to do is get yourself to Jamaica, and she's got you taken care of from there. And it's all about resetting your palate, resetting and rejuvenating your spirit, all of that stuff. So go find her on IG at Chef B. Chef B, if you want to put your IG in the comments too, I'll just call it out. Go find her on IG. Go sign up for this. She's got just a few spots left, not a whole lot, but a few spots left to join her later in the fall in Jamaica. And it is, y'all, you need to go, right? You really need to go. She is all about plant-based nutrition, eating stuff the way it was meant to be eaten, and getting healthy, not just because it's a bandwagon thing, y'all, but really about being healthy and doing the right thing for yourself. So her IG is I am Chef B. That's B with 3 E's. I am Chef, CHEFBEEE. Okay, so go find her on IG. Go sign up for her reset that's in Jamaica, in Montego Bay, I believe, which I love Montego Bay. So go get one of these last few spots. All you have to do is get yourself there, and then she's got you. She has got you. So that's one while she's there. So I want to take that little plug. All right, so we always talk about voting. Do I have a pin on? Yeah, we always talk about voting, and I need y'all to get registered. And what happens to one of us happens to all of us. So note that on the 2nd, so that's this weekend, Cote d'Ivoire is having an election. And then on the 9th, we got the Maldives is having their presidential election. So again, what happens around the world happens to all of us. We are no longer so isolated, although we got a lot of people who are trying to get there, right? We are no longer isolated. And so what happens around the world eventually happens to all of us. So pay attention to these things and see what's going on. On the 5th, we also have some special elections and some recall elections happening. On the 5th is Rhode Island, South Carolina, and Utah. So here in the States, we got some things going on. We have a tendency to think that elections only happen, the big elections, right, that happen in November. There's stuff happening all the time. That's why you got to be registered and you got to stay vigilant and stay aware of what's going on. There's recall elections. There's special elections. There are local elections. It all starts local. So pay attention to what's going on. Here's the other thing that's happening. And I need you guys to send letters to the Texas State Board of Education. And here's why. We see all the stuff that's happening in Florida, trying to rewrite history. And I saw a meme that said, history that has been written in blood cannot be rewritten in ink. That part, okay? It is what it is. And so here's what's happening in Florida. And people are finally kind of waking up and getting aware of what's going on. I'm trying to use nice words on the radio today. I'm trying. And so sidebar. I have a friend of mine made me this shirt that said classy, but I cuss a little. And I love it because I saw a coach this weekend and she's like, yeah, normally I don't do this, but every once in a while, it's just that 4-letter word is the only one that matters. I'm like, you're right. So that's happening in Florida. What's happening is it's happening in Texas as well. Our governor is just being more covert about it. So we've got this organization called PragerU. It is not accredited. It is not well-versed in instructional design, but it is heavily versed in ideological madness. They are now being charged with rewriting the curriculum of K through 12 education in Texas. One of the videos that they show is this video of Christopher Columbus, blue-eyed, red-haired Christopher Columbus, saying that slavery needs to be understood in context and understand that it wasn't a big deal when it was happening years ago. I'm going to leave that right there. So, write our Texas State Board of Education and say, no, we're not doing that. So I need everybody to do that, right? And I'm going to be posting the information to write them because that's not okay. This PragerU thing, y'all, teachers, for the most part, have advanced education. Librarians have advanced education. And we have people on school boards and we have people on other things that are working really hard to find a way to undermine actual education. The experts. It's not okay, right? We got to do better. So I need you guys to get involved and really pay attention to what's going on in education. Banning books is just a tip in. There's a young man from Nigeria who just posted the other day who's been there, who grew up there and is very politically savvy. And I should have remembered his name. I should have written it down and I did not. And he said, the problem with the United States is we keep waiting for the really big thing to happen to get our attention and say, okay, now we got to do something. And he said, it's really about being the boiled frog. It's not the big thing. It's the tiny little things, the legislation that happens, the election that's overridden, the votes that are suppressed, the IDs that are required illegally.
The rights that are taken.
It's the little things that happen over time that all of a sudden you wake up and you're like, you're the dead frog because you've been in the water and they've been turning up the heat gradually, so much so that you didn't pay attention until it was too hot and it was too late. So the big thing isn't going to happen. And there have been enough little things that we should be aware. And all of the folks 18 to 25 have had it. And I'm so excited for them because they are moving. And that's part of what we're seeing is a response to that because they overwhelmingly vote with compassion and they vote without all the madness and all of this hyperbolic rhetoric that is just insane and is not fact-based. And they're not having it. So all y'all get registered too and show up, okay? All right, I'll get off my soapbox because I'm about to get hot.
I was about to say that with you. I was like, okay.
Because it's crazy, y'all. So y'all know where I stand. We're going to do better. All right. We're getting ready to get started with Miss LaGina right here. Social impact entrepreneur, founder of the Us Space, and co-creator and supporter of, this was the second annual Melanin Minds, the third annual Melanin Minds mental health conference that happened in 2023, right? With the Maven.
Maven was there.
Yes.
She was there.
So, I mean, just LaGina does all the things, y'all. And so I realized this too this week. So I was doing my own self-development and in this room with 150 people. And y'all know me. I was like, oh, Lord. So I'm sitting at the back with the other introverted people, right? But by the end, I was like, I've made some really great connections here. And what it made me think of is LaGina reached out to me at the Black Pod Fest. And she's like, hey, you're from Houston. Let's meet. And I'm like, oh, who is this? Right? And we met at the Waffle House, which was an experience.
No.
It was an experience.
Shout out to that experience.
And so we've been friends ever since. And what we don't realize sometimes is we think, or people assume, that you can't necessarily learn things from people either whose experiences are different from you, or there's a generational difference, or any of that kind of stuff. And one of the things like LaGina has said over and over and over again is, it's about the community, it's about the network, but networking isn't about meeting all 150 people in the room. It's about meeting the one or two. And I'm like, that's speaking my language. And I actually met the few people that I needed to meet in this room. And I'm like, and I'm having LaGina on Tuesday. This is perfect. So let's start here.
Okay.
I want people to get an update on what's happening with like the us space, LRI radio, the podcast is changing. So what's happening in the world of LaGina right now?
It's a lot. But I'll say this because I have to caveat this very clearly first, is that everything I'm doing is aligned with what I've decided and what I've been beacon to do by God, is to amplify people, support people, and serve. And it sounds like cheesy because even sometimes when I say it, I'm like, oh my God,
right?
You're a servant leader or whatever.
Right.
But so with my brand, Lorraine Infinity, which is my first business, it started with art because I'm a visual fine artist, and that's something that doesn't get explored a lot here in Houston. Know about because that's where I launched, and I do public speaking, and I did my first keynote at the beginning of the year for the links. So that was really cool. And I talked about the power of networking, the real breakdown. The real breakdown. And I talk about that, like the 1, 2, or 3 people you need to meet in a room because everybody is not 6 degrees of separation. It's 2. It's like 2. Literally, it's like, oh, I know him, I know them, I know her. So those kind of things. So that's going. I'm feeling like I'm in a place where I may start painting again. And I'm exploring doing an art show maybe in the next year or so. So the podcast, Lorraine Infinity, Let's Talk Podcast, is in season 4. We're almost done with production. Shout out to the Esperson building in downtown Houston. Downtown Houston. I have a podcast studio there. And shout out to Daryl and Amber and Crystal, who are part of my production team. So we're finishing up and wrapping up production with that. I'm going to do a preview maybe tomorrow or the day after for season 4. It's a hitter lineup. It's hitter.
I love it.
People traveled in for it. So we're doing that. And then I'm ending that podcast. It's my first podcast. It's my longest running podcast. I have other projects I want to work on. So I'm going to work on those. And also those stories of women and the way they tell their stories. And I use, we are twin flames.
I know.
And I'm saying this because I introduced you to Myra, my other twin flame. And me and you were in a room the other day, and I was like, oh, this is my person too. I was like, wow. And I feel, really happy and blessed. But let me stay on with what you asked. So I'm ending because the women that were, that told their stories, they're timeless. And they need to be repurposed and retold and resurfaced. So I'm going to definitely focus on that in the next couple of years. But I have some ideas for some other podcast shows. I want to get syndicated. I really do. Yeah. And,
That's
give
awesome.
my Rachel Maddow, Oprah-esque, Issa Rae type vibe that I have, and I want to take that on. So there's that. The US Space, intentional innovation spaces for women of color and women-centric organizations, and your part. So I thank you for sowing seeds into the US Space. It's growing. It's growing. And, we're about to make some moves. Nothing's signed yet, so we're going to leave it at that. And then Melanin Minds, oh my gosh. One, shout out to my co-founder, Mel. Love you, Mel. Based out of LA. But we're doing things. We're going on our 2nd annual road trip. So LA, Chicago. And and then we're adding Austin this year. And the theme this year is the dynamic duos, co-founder relationships.
I love it.
Like entrepreneurial mental health. So and we just got done with the Melanin Minds Mental Health Conference 2023. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, in downtown Houston, Texas. So it was. We had over 60 speakers. Also activations. Yoga, kids and family day, self-help day, all the things. Wow.
I love
There's
it.
a lot. It moves.
See, and this is the reason I wanted to have LaGina on, because there was a lot of stuff going on when she was here. It was like last year, wasn't it? It was a year ago.
It was a year ago.
It was a year ago.
My show in November, so I know mine was right before that.
So it was a year ago, and how much changes, and part of what I think is important for entrepreneurs, and I was just they're supposed to be. There we go. For those of y'all who are on, right, we just keep moving. It's those divine interventions. And I knew what I wanted to do, but when you have space for folks to help guide you, but you're not really clear, depending on how your makeup is, that guidance can also turn into directing you. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize how much of that had happened until probably year 5. And I was like, let's do this. And so now it's really clear. It's 7-figure founders with a team. We're moving from founder to CEO. That's it. Clear, period, the end. That's where my genius is.
Yeah.
And that real, like you said, those things where you know you're of service. It is where God has told you to be, right? Yeah. And so when I think about all of the things you're doing, and you talk about evolution, mm-hmm. You said, you got this podcast that's been going for 4 years. Yeah. And I'm changing mine up, right? And you're like, I think it's time to sunset it, to do something else. Talk about how, as an entrepreneur, you decide when it's time to do something different, including letting something go.
Okay. So I started the podcast in 2019, shortly after my father passed. Mm-hmm. And it was really a way for me to have an outlet, and then when you talk about letting go, I don't know if I try to do really purposeful projects. Mm-hmm. So putting it down or shifting it versus letting it go. I feel like a lot of the stuff I do is evergreen. But I often talk about as a founder and an entrepreneur, mm-hmm. and even when I'm talking to people, I'm like, you need to know your mission. Yes. And this comes from, I am the worst things because you tell me to. If you tell the room to stand up, I'm not standing up. If you tell, I'm a very contrary. Yeah, I'm a very contrary. I'm a why person. Yes. I'm a no. That's beyond. To envision, value, goals, pillars, business plan. It's some real stuff, and so I need to know your mission, understand your mission outside of the words, but from the gut, the root, mm-hmm. and really lean into that. And once you do that, everything answers itself. Yes. If you question it, then you just go back and read the mission.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And with the podcast, I knew that when I had started it, and from the first episode, my first recording was in Austin, in downtown, in my apartment complex, in the community conference room. Mm-hmm. And the woman tells her story about her eating disorder, her lack of control, and how that plays into her life. And I was like, wow, this is a forever story. Yes. And I was just so pulled back by it. Mm-hmm. And then the next one and the next one. And I was like, whoa, people are telling me things that society has deemed not okay to talk about, not only about women. Yes. And so I know I needed to get a season 4 out, because you can even go to my drive. I have notes and seasons and people I targeted. And I tried last year when my sister passed to do this season 4, and I'm listening to people talk, and nothing was registering. I was like, I don't care. Yeah. And that's not good, right? Because this is stuff that I do care about. Yes. So I was like, let me recalibrate, let me figure out myself. And I wouldn't say fix me, because I'm still fixing me, and I don't know what fixing looks like, because nothing's broken versus
there you go.
I'm just going through the journey. I'm going through this journey, and this journey, I have an off-road vehicle.
Yes, there you go.
So to answer your question, the mission and understanding who you are and your motto and your morals and your values behind your business. And even if they're very closely aligned with me as a human, it's my business. Yes. It's not my baby. I know a lot of people go with that, and respect if you do, but I am a community mother, not a birthing mother. Yes. And so when I think about it, it's really just around understanding exactly what I'm doing in business. And then the next thing, I'm starting to speak into existence and telling people out loud, I want to be syndicated.
Absolutely.
And, I want somebody to come to me and be like, you'd be perfect for this.
Yes.
And I'd be like, absolutely. Yes. So that's where I'm at. And that means that, to keep quality of projects going, I'm going to finish this one. And it's the first time that I'm doing video
Mhm.
and audio.
Yes.
My producer, Daryl, like we started with 2 cameras. He's like, these last 2, you're going to have 3 cameras. There's like a beam light over our head. And like, it looks like that 70s show. Have you
Yes,
seen that
yes,
70s show?
yes.
So it's the black girl version of the
Yes.
basement of that 70s show.
I love
So
that.
it's very
Yes.
warm and cozy.
Mhm.
My dad's records are in the background. My sister was not a green thumb, but she had a fig plant that was fake.
Yep.
And so that's in there.
Yes.
Some of my paintings are in there.
Yes.
My mama bought the rug. So a little bit of all of
It's
my family
you.
is in there in some
Yeah.
type of way. And so it's a very meaningful way to end. And we even did the podcast relaunch and listen party
Mhm.
on like this 17th floor balcony
Yes.
looking out
It
over
was
this
amazing,
city.
y'all.
So
Yes.
yeah.
It
I
was
think
amazing.
it's a fun way to end.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's also the beginning of repurposing and resurfacing some of those amazing interviews as well.
I love it. And I want to point this out because LaGina probably doesn't even realize this. Because what I love about doing this and interviewing people and what people have told me is I listen really well and ask deep questions.
Mm-hmm.
I asked that question to you on purpose. And you just said, know your mission, know your purpose, be very clear about, who you are, your mission, your values, and align with that. Your answer that you just gave me was exactly the same answer you gave me a year ago. Exactly the same.
Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Wow. Well, I mean, there you go.
And the reason I point that out is, number one, she has said, here's who I am and here's how I'm aligned.
Yeah.
And I wanted you to know you are also showing up as how you said it.
Thank you.
Right?
Yeah,
And what's important about that is, we often get tied up in who we want to be, right? And if who we want to be isn't really who we are, we can't be consistent like that. And when you're inconsistent, you undermine trust.
Oh Lord, you have a lot of faith in me because I'm glad I'm consistent, y'all. And it's really one of the. I want to be a gymnastics star. I would like to have ran the 4x4 or 4x1
in 2 seconds, right?
so fast.
Right.
I would have liked to go on after college and playing D2 softball to play for the American team.
Right.
But the reality is I am a talking head and I'm a little bit, sharp.
But what was meant for you is showing up for you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
And so as entrepreneurs, I think we have to be mindful of that, is that, we have this vision, and this is the other thing that's powerful. You heard LaGina say a minute ago, we showed up in this room together and it was like mind melt. And we were there to help someone else, right? We had shown up because someone else was looking for input. And there was one point when I was like, I need you to get out of my head, because I was just about to say those exact words.
We were like yelling at each other.
Yes. Stop doing that. But here's the thing. We both have podcasts. We both have radio shows. She loves to speak. I love to speak. She was talking about really wanting to be syndicated. One of the things that I always have had is I am going to be on big stages. That's what I want the biggest piece of my business to be, other than the foundation. It's like there are so many things about us that are so very well aligned. What you don't see is, no, I can't have you on my show. No, we can't talk about that. No, we can't be in the same space. I would introduce you, but you might get the thing that I want.
I'm like, can you go get it?
Right.
I'm like,
can you go do that? Because I don't want to. Right?
I'm like, can you come on my show? I'm tired, so you can carry it.
And that's the thing, right? I think we as entrepreneurs, sometimes when we get in that mindset of scarcity, or we get out of what our mission is, and while we're here, we start getting challenges to our confidence that it's going to work.
Yeah.
And when that happens, we're afraid to let things go and let things happen.
Yeah, I really do think that. So 2 things is, you hear a lot of this collaboration over competition. I don't really believe in that. I like to compete, and I am a competitor, and I will win, and I will win against my friends, and I want my friends to think that they're going to win against me. And I'll be like, girl, you don't, and not in this deprivating way, but let me send you the link.
Right.
How about you go get it too? Because it's a scarcity thing, right?
Yes.
Like, literally up the street from each other, doing the same thing, reaching 2 different audiences, and it matters. So that's one of the things that I really think about when I'm thinking about like people and what we're doing and how we're growing.
Right.
Because even though on paper it looks the same, you're you and I'm me.
Right. Exactly.
And to the point where I would say over the last year, you know, on my mental health journey that I'm on, which is like steep and peaks and valleys, and
the struggle is real.
It is a real struggle. And, you know, from last year to this year, I gave myself 1 year to find a therapist. I have a therapist now.
Great.
But it's
I'm a believer, y'all.
Right. It's a whole nother beast of burden.
Yes.
But I will say one thing that I noticed, and I called my mom one day about it, or maybe I had walked in the house and told her. I said, "This is scary," because you know how I always say, have the audacity of a white male millennial and swag it out how you do. I have a lot of audacity right now, and I'm very much operating in this place of like, I understand it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen, and I could name off the it's, but I just understand it's gonna happen.
Yes.
And the things that don't, I'm like, well, dang, I'm sorry that they missed out. Like that's literally my, and it's really fun to be at that point.
Yes.
Because it's not like, oh, you need to check your ego, because I understand good and bad ego.
Right.
And I still have to fight out off my bad ego. Like, LaGina, nobody wants to hear from you. Or LaGina, you know, all those things. So, and the world's beating up against me anyways. I'm a Black, female, millennial. I'm very outspoken. I'm single. You know, all of those things. And there's something to be said about all of it, right?
Yes.
Even the reports that came out about, what is it, 2/3 more likely to die on a birthday table, bleeding out, because they call it hemorrhaging, but it's bleeding out just from having a baby. And then you look at my skin tone and my thickness, so they probably count me out as soon as
already.
So I'm like, there's a lot going against me, so I have to be for myself.
Yes. Yeah. You know, and it's interesting. I was recording the podcast episode this morning, and it's really about why. Do you know what your why is? Your deep why, right? I'm telling y'all, look, I am a believer, and this is why the creative process, for those of you who are entrepreneurs, even if you're in an organization right now, honor your own creative process. So even my producer who's here, and Jerry and I have talked about this too, and then our producer Jay have talked about this, is, you know, everybody's got the content calendar and all the things. I don't work that way. In fact, it kind of takes away my ability to function. It takes away my ability to function if I have to be too regimented. But I believe that things come to me and I'm like, that's what I need to talk about. So this morning I'm like, it's about that why. It's about that why. LaGina just showed me she had typed why.
Well, it's my new podcast that I'm working on getting to. It's called The Why.
Let me tell you. It is, I want you guys to listen to LaGina, if you've been listening to me as well, and just honor that what's supposed to come will come. And just because everybody else is telling you, you've got to do a content calendar, you've got to do all of these things, it doesn't have to be that way. And let me be clear. Having a content calendar for me just gives me, hey, these are the kind of things I want to talk about. But if something else comes to me, that's what I do. Because it's mine, right? I can do what I want to do. But this whole idea of what is the deeper why? Why are you doing what you're doing? And then to be able to sit in that level of ego and confidence. Because as I said, you get something from everybody if you're open to it. So what I always take from LaGina is, no, I just know this is going to happen. Because see, that's not necessarily my mindset. It's never going to happen person, not at all. But that level of confidence is at a whole different level than what I have. I know I'm good. I know I'm exceptional. Not good. I'm exceptional at what I do. I am highly experienced, right? And I just have a gift that I know is God given to me that helps me take those founders to CEO, because everyone I work with, they're like, oh my God, I didn't think about that. And if I just met you 5 years ago, right, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I have now had a conversation I wasn't able to have before because I talked to you about it, right? And it's that whole idea of, it's not about not being kind. It's about the difference between compassion and emotion. I just need you to not be emotional. I want you to be compassionate and care about your people. But it's not your baby. It's a business. When you're in emotion, it's all family. When you're in compassion, it's, I want to take care of my people who are assets, because we've got a mission to follow and an impact to make. And in order for us to do that, everybody's got to be operating in their genius. That's different. If I'm in emotion, I'm like, oh my God, they don't feel good. What am I going to do? They're not doing what I want to do, but I don't want to have the conversation. Stop, right? And what I love about connecting with LaGina is the whole kind of mindset, one, of possibilities. And not only possibilities, but guaranteed possibilities. It may not look like you think it's going to look, but it's going to be something.
Yeah. Oh my God.
That's near adjacent, right?
I don't know.
And that mindset takes so much pressure off.
It does in a lot of ways, but what's really interesting is because if you don't see all of those things, like that whole page you saw of me working on something, you assume, because even people that just meet me, they're like, oh, they say this like passive stuff around, like, oh, you're so goofy, you're funny, does anything get done, all those kind of things. And it's like, I struggle on the highs and lows and everything else. So I make sure in the moments that I enjoy this.
Yes.
And I can be goofy as you want. And then you tell me that I need to present it. And I'm like, hello, good evening.
Right.
Like and it's not me switching, but me just being me.
Yes.
Right. And so this level of professionalism, I talk about it during the Us Space Work Accountability Days, that, professional is who you say you are.
Yes.
Because you're your own expert or thought leader or researcher of a topic, just like a doctoral program.
Yes.
You literally pick out like one thing, and then that's deep. And so when I think about that, that's where I go, is that you can be everything. Like, I'm a party girl USA, but I will still sit down with, the first woman president of the League of Women Voters that was a black woman, is a black woman, the first black woman that is the president, or first past president, long time,
right?
League of Women Voters, and still have this amazing interview with her on my show at night in the Third Ward. Yes. And me still, very colorful with my words and everything else, and it doesn't change the value of the interview.
Absolutely.
It reaches a different audience, and for me, that kind of stuff is important. Just still being able to accurately be yourself and still have this level of your own defined professionalism.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does. It makes perfect sense. This one coach this week, her name is Pam Slim. She was actually Rachel Rogers' first coach. What she said is for us to remember that we are the cake. Everything we do is the icing. And I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's good.
Okay.
I'm like, I am the cake.
Do you consider yourself like a 2-tier, 3-tier cake?
I am that those really thin, like 14 layers.
Oh.
That's me.
Like all in one.
All in one. Right? Like all the little, when it has a little torte with all the little layers.
Okay, yeah. You know the Barnaby's like rainbow cake?
That
cake, that's me. I'm like, I'm all those things. Yes, some days I'm red. Don't play with me. Don't play.
And some days I'm like, yay! It's so great to be here.
Yellow sunshine.
Yes. Well, and that's what I think your point about professionalism as you define it, because especially for those of you who have come out of corporate and are doing your own thing, at least I found the evolution for me, right? Even when I look back at my website, when I look back at things I put, it was still so corporate. And it wasn't that it wasn't me. It was me, but it wasn't who I am now.
Yeah. It's something, when I have interns,
yeah,
I'll talk to them because they're still writing from a very academic standpoint.
Yes.
And I still write pretty academically, unless it's email. And I'm like, especially if I know you, I'm like, yo,
Right.
One love,
Yes.
all this stuff. But talking about the voice of your business, because
Yes.
then we go back to the mission, and your business has its own voice. Like the Us Space is almost to the point where we have the voice developed.
Yes.
Because it's like a mix between my voice and Paula's voice when she was an intern, and Tona's voice when she was an intern, and Trey Nelson, who's now contracted, moved from intern to contracted person. And all of that is like developing the voice of the Us Space and things that we say in our meetings. And I'm like, okay, that's us too. So, yeah.
Yes. And that's what I think we often miss, right? Is we're so busy trying to be who people think we should be or who we think we should be that we lose who we are, right? And sometimes it takes time. It takes time because we've been taught by the response to who we are by society what's safe and what's not.
Ooh, that's good. Because as you're saying that, I was thinking that I have to check on me being me quite often. And I've been editing. I mean, quite often, because sometimes the response to the things I do or say is like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Right? But then later on, you get a reach out and somebody's like, thank you.
Thank you.
Or then 2, 3, 4 months later,
Yes.
other people start magically, it's the evolution and it's so innovative. And I'm like, oh, but I was the bad guy. And I, just like cussing on stage.
Right.
Like I tell people, I'm like, what can I do?
Where's the boundary?
Yeah, my friend Jasmine Brandt, she's like, that's what I brought you here
What,
for, girl.
Jasmine?
Yeah. She's like, that's what I brought you here for, girl. I was like, okay, just so clear. So
yes. Because but here's the thing about that, and here's the thing about that. What you heard in what LaGina said is she is very clear on who she is and what her brand is, what her voice is. She's developing the voice to be us space. She's just very clear on those things, as we all should be. And she is confident enough in who she is and what her voice is that she doesn't have any problem asking somebody else, what is your brand? And what are the boundaries? Because she can still be who she is within some guardrails, right?
Yeah.
And I think we sometimes think that we have to be different than who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't.
You don't. And I remember last year when I got off your show, somebody commented, they were like, I'm surprised you didn't cuss the whole time. Or when I get up and I do youth things and I'm an MC for those, I can still be colorful and not cuss.
Absolutely.
Because I've been editing past podcasts from 2022, and there was one of them, and we were talking about the traits of a genius.
Yes.
And one of them is this colorful vocabulary.
Yes,
that I
it
have.
is. Yes.
And out of, I think, the 13 things we read, 12 of them, I am a genius. I have 12 of them. And so it would behoove people to think.
Right.
That, I cannot not cuss, right? But it's
if I'm in my genius.
If I'm in my genius, because the juxtaposition to the whole thing
there you go.
would be that she's this and can't do this. And I'm like, I can do this.
I can do both
all
of those things.
Yeah.
All of those things. And that's what I think, it's also that argument we have, especially as Black women, and especially as any person of the global majority that is in a space that is not created for us, is there is a difference between assimilating so that your message is conveyed in the way you want it to be conveyed and can be heard versus selling out. And we have a real quick move to you just sold out. No. I just am savvy enough to know the environment that I'm in. And my point is to get my point across.
Right.
And if that means I have to speak in a way that is very calm and clear, I will do that. If that means I've got to bring on the vernacular, then that's what we do too, right? It depends on where you are.
And I would never disrespect my mother, Regina V. Harris, by not using the fact that she was a military officer and we got to move. And, and through my mom and dad, we have this skill of being able to adapt, right, to different things. And I often joke because people will be like, well, how'd she get in that room? How's that person her mentor? Who's in it? And then I'm like, two things can be true.
Yes.
Either I get in the room and then they're like, oh, dang it. Or they're like, because I never really changed exactly who I am versus, I can speak other languages. I can speak all the languages and it doesn't change the root because I'm the root, I'm the mother. This is the original. So it's all there. Just because of the voice, don't let this voice fool you like that.
Don't get caught off guard, right? And that's the thing. If there's a reason I have my logo as a tree, right? And I do that purposefully. And the thing about the tree is if you look at, as trees grow, its branches, its leaves, its fruit, its flowers, its seeds, it's all the things that come out of the top of the tree. And those can be a multitude of things, right? Sometimes it's a flower. Sometimes the flower turns into a fruit. Sometimes it's just leaves. Sometimes the leaves change, right? There's so much variety in what the trees produce. And it's still a tree.
It's still a tree. Even after the freeze, we lost our lemon tree.
Yep.
And so it's growing back, but it has thorns. And we were told that it will never produce fruit with the thorns or whatever. But it's still a tree.
It's still a tree.
Yeah.
It's still a tree.
It's very
and I think you're right. And I think for all of you who are in this entrepreneurial journey, or you're in some kind of leadership journey, because remember, leadership is about behavior, not about position, right? If you are in this journey, remembering to be grounded in who you are, right? That I call it the root system. For me, that's faith, family, friends, and health, right? Big health, physical, financial, emotional, all of that. Being grounded in that so that you can take all of those gifts you've been given and put them out in a way that matters for you and that serves other people, right? And we forget sometimes that if we are grounded, the tree's not gonna move. The tree is not gonna move. But those seeds may be taken on the wind somewhere, right? That leaf may fall down and just kind of rejuvenate. You may get, a flower this year that doesn't fruit, but next year you got a tree full.
Yes.
Right? You just don't know what you're sowing by staying grounded and by nurturing, right? By nurturing your feet, by nurturing your soul, by resting. I talked about what Dr. Chef B is doing. That's about rejuvenation, right? That's about rest. That's about resetting. And if we don't take the time to reset sometimes, there's no way for us to be able to deliver the way we want to deliver.
And I'm a testament to that, because last year I took December 16th to January 16th of this year off.
See, love it.
And, I even found myself on the radio show. I've been editing stuff. I'm like, oh gosh, it's like a time capsule.
Right.
And I always say I reserve the right to change my mind, right? There's that. But anyways, I took that time off and I kind of didn't have a plan. And in that month, I realized how important it is to step back and step away and not deal with people. And then you realize what people that you actually want to deal with and the ones you don't.
Yes.
And I remember right before that, the week before, a friend and mentor of mine, we had a meeting, and he's like, well, this is what you're getting.
Right.
It's not always going to be LaGina the happy. And he was like, oh, wow. And that's, that moment, I was like, okay, it's time to take the step back.
I may need a minute.
Yeah. And throughout the year, I literally just put blocks on my calendar where it just says not available. That way nobody can book meetings through Calendly. Or, I take after I started therapy, I took like a week and a half off because it was like really hard.
Hard. Yes.
It was like, when you open the box or on The Mummy where it's like, that, it's a whole thing.
It's truly Pandora's box. If
so
you're doing deep therapy, yes.
Yeah. And sometimes for people like us that are front facing and talking all the time, the therapy doesn't even have to go real deep. She asked me 3 questions and I was like, I lost it. But I also did the math on how much I was paying, and I was like, that's over $2 a minute. She about to get all of it. Give my dollars for it.
Exactly. Well, and that's, I think we've got to give ourselves the grace and the gift of time, because time is not renewable, right? And so as entrepreneurs, you have got to be able to take time to do what you need to do for you, because I can't show up for my clients if I'm exhausted or frustrated or am skipping therapy or whatever the thing is, right? And I've been with my therapist for 13 years.
Oh wow.
13
same
years.
Therapist?
Yes, same therapist. And I remember some people are like, oh, that's a long time. What's wrong? You can't figure it out yet. I'm like, no, see, if you got the right person, that relationship evolves over time. And now it's almost like this kind of business coach mindset therapy, as opposed to, Laura, we need to figure out what this is therapy, so you keep showing up, right? It evolves over time.
It does.
And so I would encourage you guys, and it doesn't have to be a therapist. It can be your ride or die, but just understand, sometimes you need someone who loves you a little less to be the person that you talk about the real deep stuff with. Because the folks who love you the most are going to listen and support you, but they're also going to be in your corner. And you might need someone to say, yeah, that don't make no sense. That is not a story that's true. And I need you to deal with that. And let's work through it, own those emotions, but we're not going to call something true that's not. And people that love you deep are not always going to be the ones, when it's real painful for you, are not always going to be the ones that are going to be like, okay, I got you. I'm going to let you wallow for a few more minutes and then we got to move on. because that's just not true. I'm not going to let you sit in something that's not true because they just want you to feel better. Right.
Yeah, well, my family does not let me wallow. And
At all.
sometimes for me,
Yeah.
I need to wallow.
Yes.
Like, I had to figure out why I needed to go to therapy. As a co-founder of a nonprofit for BIPOC folks,
Yes.
I was like, it's not that I don't believe in therapy, right?
Right.
I need to understand why I need to go.
Yes.
Because I am a high-functioning, depressed person.
Right.
Right?
That part. Mm-hmm.
And so I had to understand why I need to go. And the first thing I said is, once I figured it out, I think I called my mom, and I think I called Myra too.
Yeah.
And Myra, very good.
Yeah.
But I think I called and I was like, I need to go to a therapist to talk about all the people that hurt my feelings. And we don't get to talk about that enough. No. And people assume or are surprised when my feelings are hurt. Can I go back to something you said?
Yes, absolutely.
Since we've been talking about like all this stuff with entrepreneurs,
yes.
It takes me back to something I said during the mental health conference when I was on stage, and I said, you know, there's still something to be said about when it's time to put your head down and work.
Yes.
Because I often hear entrepreneurs that are seasoned and have a lot of experience talk about, well, you know, I'm not working from dusk to dawn and all this stuff, which is fine because you've put in the time to do that, right? Yes. But just like with women of color in business, there's the support when you start and there's the support when you get to the 7-8 figures, but that middle. And when you're in the middle, it looks like a whirlwind because I'm proudly in the middle.
Yes.
And I just be spinning. Sometimes I feel like I'm at the beginning. Sometimes I'm over here hanging out with my 7-figure friends. And I'm like, yeah. But like, there's something to be said about there are some nights that you're going to put your head down, and there's going to be months, and there's going to be quarters, all 3 of those months, where you're just going to be working from dusk to dawn. But what you were saying about that stepping back, what we've been talking about, that step back is really important. And realizing when you're not in that time or that journey or that part of that season anymore. And realize when it is time to get a team. And the tropes that's going on is always that, like, don't be afraid to let go. Sometimes you need to be afraid to let go because if you don't understand what you're doing, then you can't hand it off. And so understanding that may be your fear versus letting go of things, because now that I understand what I'm doing, this is me. I'm like, wait, you want 5 pages or 6? They're laid out. Here's the password. Here's the and you can have that meeting on your own. No, you're fine. Because also that person's proved their work ethic.
Exactly.
So it's really the tandem of knowing your cadence and relearning it and learning it and understanding how it changes, because nothing's set in stone. And I think that's something that's always given to people in business, especially women, especially women of color, especially Black women, is that stuff is set in stone and there's like a 1, 2, 3, 4.
There's a step.
And there's not. There's just not.
It's not like that.
I wish there was. I'd probably not do it.
Well, me neither. But it would be nice to have at least an outline. We're going to do some shout outs here in a minute. But, it's funny that you say that because, one of the things in doing this certification, I talk about this on the podcast this week, is I'm weird about certifications. Because there are a lot of certified people who don't know nothing. And you're talking to someone who has a lot of certifications, right? So I understand the reason for them. I understand the decision for like quality control around them, for deeper learning around them. I think there is a basis for them that is steeped in fact and also steeped in a desire for quality control. That being said, there are a lot of CPAs who don't know how to be a good CPA, and a lot of lawyers who aren't good lawyers, a lot of doctors who aren't good doctors, a lot of HR people who are certified who aren't HR people, right? So you can't take the certification in and of itself as an indication of quality.
Correct.
And so I intentionally went am going through this certification process, mainly for my business. And then I've had some things come up because I also believe in continuously learning. Had some things come up that I'm like, oh, let me ask the question a little bit differently for my client, because my client's getting great results, but this might actually turn it up, right? So you have to be open to learning. But that whole idea of the middle and making the determination of what busy's going to look like for you during that time, right? Because I'm looking at my calendar starting in July through like October, and I'm like, I don't see any white space in my calendar. Now I've done enough work on me that when I don't see white space, makes my anxiety off the charts, right? And I said something to somebody, I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they're like, but it's your calendar, right? So you put it together. Actually, it was Jerry.
Nice.
Jerry said, she's like, but you did it, right? I'm like, well, yeah, but, right? And so I think understanding that there are going to be times where you have to dig deep.
Yeah.
And you're going to pull those all-nighters. You're going to burn that midnight oil, especially if those of you coming out of corporate where you just don't have the energy anymore to do that because you've been doing that so much for somebody else. Go back to the mission. Go back to the deep why of what you're doing. Find that little extra energy. And you may not be able to stay up to do all the things, but if you can at least get a couple more things done off your list, make sure, one, your list makes sense. And then two, go back to why you're doing it so you can dig the energy up from deep, because it's not just about doing it just to do it. It's about doing it because there's a purpose for the work that you're doing, because time is not renewable. And the longer you don't do the thing, it's not going away just because you didn't do it. It's still going to be there. And by the way, when it keeps showing up, then you're going to be frustrated and irritated. And then all the spin about worthiness and capability and smart, all the mess is going to show up.
Why are you talking to me this way?
Right.
Why?
Am I snatching
Nobody asked you to start lecturing me. We were on a good vibe. Okay, And you know, the to-do list will keep getting longer
Yes.
if you just kind of let it pile up and get frustrated and get stuck. And so that, you know, I tell one of my friends, I'm like, just one thing at a time. Just one thing at a time. And also understand one of the best things about being an entrepreneur is, like you were saying, when you figure out what your schedule is going to look like for you, is also like when people are like, I need that right now. No, you don't. You absolutely don't need it right now. And I'll tell you from my own experience, for 2 years of meeting people's deadlines as an entrepreneur, and then they'd be like, well, can you? Well, we've changed. I don't need that. You know what? You don't need nothing ever until like it gets to you. And that's not an arrogance thing. But you have to understand that like somebody's rush and lack of preparation cannot be your challenge or your problem.
Honey,
And the right people that you deal with. If you told me, LaGina, I need you, I'd be like, cool, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But if somebody just comes in and it's like frazzled, and usually it's not that important. And somebody has to be able to step back and give the perspective for the angle.
Yes.
You know what? Like I had this really challenge this morning, and it was something really minute. And I was like, step back, LaGina. And I typed in 3 words. The solution popped up, and I was like, I did that.
Yeah.
You know, versus I was about to start freaking out because I was like, I can't find.
Yeah.
And then I was like, yes, you can.
Just pause.
Your brain operates very complex.
Yes.
Simplify and then execute.
Right.
You know, so.
And that's probably why we get along, because both of our brains are really messy. Like they're constantly going. I'm having multiple conversations at the same time, right? Thinking about multiple things. But it's in that stillness when we just say, just stop. Just stop. Take a minute. It always comes.
And you operate in your genius.
Hello. That's what we're talking about, right? Let's do some quick shots, and we got a couple more closing words.
All right, we're in the Philippines, Nigeria, France, Canada's in the building, Kenya, Mexico, Germany, Brazil, Finland. We've also got Dubai, Rome, Nairobi, Helsinki, Frankfurt, New York, Charlotte, Jacksonville, Chicago, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Washington, D.C., and Houston.
I love it.
Much love to the people in North Carolina right now.
Exactly. North Carolina and Florida. ILDA is coming. So that they're preparing for that on top of all the stuff that happened in Jacksonville. And we are with you in Jacksonville. You know, sometimes there just aren't any words. Because North Carolina, Chapel Hill, so we need to take care of each other. We need to take care of each other because the world is a little bit crazy. So as we end today on this conversation around entrepreneurship, around showing up, around, being who you are, right? I want to know from you, LaGina Harris, what are, especially when you talk about entrepreneurs in this messy middle, what are the top 3 pieces of advice that you would give to someone? Because most businesses, I think there's only 1% of businesses that are actually 7-figure businesses, right?
Mhm.
Women owned, right? And even getting to being in business over 5 years, right? There's only like 20% maybe that make it that long. And that's kind of that middle, right? That middle part of you're not just starting, but you're not at 7 figures and with a massive thing yet. It's the messy middle. What are the 3 pieces of advice that you would give to someone who's in that messy middle to just keep going?
3 pieces of advice. I'll start with the one that we've been talking about all show, knowing your mission. And if you don't have one, it's cool. Get one. And just sit down, like understand what those words mean, and then put those words down, put them on your website, put them on your social media, and then also be able to articulate those words to different people in different ways, right? So knowing that mission. Number 2 is being able to speak multiple languages. And I'm not talking about like you know, Spanish
Right.
and French and German and even doing sign language. I'm talking about knowing the different languages of different sectors you're in. Like I sometimes speak about tech, and I tell people all the time I'm a non-conventional tech founder. I have to deal with dev teams, development teams. I have websites. I have to figure out all the tech on all. I have 2 computers,
Right?
you know, and everything else. So
Yes.
understanding the different languages and being comfortable being like, I don't understand that. You need to explain it to me where I can understand it, and also so I can go talk to other people about it. So being really comfortable with understanding and stepping out of, I guess, what people say, their box or their lane. I don't believe that you need to stay in your lane. I believe that find somebody in a different lane that can do the driving.
Yes, there you go.
Right? So there's that. And then the third one is, if you can't find happiness in what you're doing, then go back to just getting paid to work for somebody. It sounds wild, but right now I still find happiness in my entrepreneurial journey. And so my $1 cuts like somebody's $100. That $1 goes as far as somebody's 100 is getting paid by somebody else. And it's because I found happiness in it. And I'm not saying it's an easy journey.
Right.
It's pretty dang hard.
Right.
It's really, really hard. But I find joy in it. And every now and then I'll be like,
Right.
me work for me.
Yes.
You know, so I think those are the 3 things, is really understanding your mission, your vision, that core value, even your vision, right?
Yes.
Because you know that the US space was originally going to start in this 1,200,000 building, and and I had to start at coffee shop and then get a partnership with the Canon, and now we're moving and growing. So there's iterations, but really understanding where I'm going clearly, and then knowing that language part, and then knowing when to exit if you need to exit. And it's okay to pause, go get some money, and then come back. It really is. So those are the 3. Yeah.
I love that. And I think of all of those points, because I talk about that a lot, right? That's why I say alignment, vision, action. Get aligned with who you are and where you are. Understand where you're trying to go, and then get really clear on what you're willing to do to get there.
Oh, I just did an alignment, vision, action.
See, you did.
Ooh.
We are, look,
Ugh.
there's a reason we're connected, y'all. And I think that part of, you tying it all into, therapy, and there's good ego and bad ego, right? There's confidence and competence.
Yeah.
That understanding that if I'm doing this entrepreneurial thing, which is hard, it is hard. If I'm not finding joy, and I don't mean the times when you just got anxiety and you're upset and you feel like you just need to go to bed. I'm not talking about that.
No.
To be an entrepreneur, that's going to happen.
That's going.
I'm talking about when you truly are having those Sunday scaries all the time for the job you created, for the business you created. Go get that job. Go get the job, make some money, regroup, reset, and don't believe the hype that you can't make an impact working for someone else. Because you can. You can. Entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. It shouldn't be for everyone. And there are a lot of people in these big corporations who need you to be there.
And they need independent thinkers that were their own boss at one point.
Yes.
And I also, there's people they have been in the entrepreneur world, it didn't work out, and are pleading not to go back. I'm like, go work for another entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
They need help too.
They do.
And it's something I always say on my show during Entrepreneur Gyms.
Yes.
People will like, you know, they tell their gym
Mhm.
either to a current entrepreneur, a future one, or a conscious consumer.
Mm-hmm.
I always talk about, I'll be like, just don't start a business.
Right.
And people are like, what? I'm like, well, research, see who else has a business that you can contribute to.
Yes.
Because if you're fire at numbers, I know about 11 entrepreneurs that could take on a CFO right now.
Exactly.
And if you're great with computers and tech, I know 11 entrepreneurs right there in the innovation little line right here in
Yes.
Third Ward.
We need an IT support.
An ITO. And they'll give you equity and you can get a contract
Exactly.
and do that and
Mhm.
help a business
Yes.
keep going on and on.
Yes.
On and on.
Yes.
And on.
It doesn't have to look one way.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to look one way. Well, we could do this for another 4 hours.
Yeah, that's easy.
We could. We could. Thank you.
Thank you.
coming on
I
again.
appreciate you.
I just love these conversations. Always lift me up when I'm having one of those days. And although I'm having a good day today, and because I knew LaGina was coming on the show. So thank y'all for tuning in, for being here, for being a part of the show. For those of you who are following LaGina, go pay attention to the Us Space. Follow her on IG. She's on LinkedIn, but you're mostly really on IG.
Oh
You're doing
no,
a lot on
my
IG. Are you up in
LinkedIn my LinkedIn algorithm.
All right.
Oh yeah.
So go get her on LinkedIn too, LaGina R. Harris. Make sure you are following her and seeing the amazing work that she's doing. And if you are looking for a place of like-minded people, women who are being uplifted, supported, a space that is safe and progressive, right? Check out the S Space. Check out the S Space. Check out Melanin Minds. Be sure and follow her so she can give us the date. Do you have the dates yet of the conference is going to be in LA and in Chicago?
So yeah, the road trip dates, I'll pull them up right
Because
now.
if you are there, I've got some friends in Chicago, so I will be letting y'all know you need to show up for this road show because it's going to be amazing.
So the Melanin Minds road trip, LA, Chicago, Austin. LA, we're going to be there September 22nd to
Okay.
24th.
Okay.
And we're going to be at like 2 or 3 different locations.
Perfect.
And then in Chicago, we're partnered with Anna Deshawn.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, so the Cube
Yes.
and Pigment International. And we'll be there October 13th through the 15th.
Okay.
And then we're going to Austin with and partnering with our sister organization, Lift Collective.
Mhm.
And we'll be there November 17th through the 19th.
Okay.
So,
So listen to those dates. Show up. You will be forever changed by being around these people and these incredible people because you see LaGina. So, and Anna is amazing. So,
I'm
you know, it's going to be awesome. So thank y'all for tuning in. I appreciate it so much. Share this with somebody. If it made sense to you, if you got something out of it, share it around. The podcast will drop on Wednesday. And then you'll see some amazing things happening starting next month. Take care,
Dr.
everybody.
Hickman said great discussion. Michelle Johnson said great segment.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Dr. Hickman. We'll see y'all next time. Bye.
Bye.